All right, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Ginny McGee, and I'm an instructional designer in the e-learning division at Camden County College. And the webinar for today is called Is Anyone Out There? And we're just going to go over some ways that you can help to create a sense of social presence in your online course. We'll go over first what that means and then look at some practical suggestions for creating that sense that there is somebody, sense for your students that there is somebody out there behind the learning management system that is actually crafting the class. And so I do want to also mention that Rose DiNardo is here with us today. She is our Assistant Director of the e-learning division. And as we usually do, we are going to be using the chat area over on the right-hand side of the screen for any questions that you may have. So if you are new to this, you may need to go and locate that chat area. You might need to click the plus sign in the chat area to expand it. But if you do have any questions, you can feel free to type those into the chat as we go. Okay, so I want to start by sort of defining what I mean or what we mean by social presence. And if you do some research on this, you could go down a rabbit hole very quickly of varying definitions that are similar in nature, but you definitely will find different ideas of what social presence is and how it's defined. So we're going to look today kind of at two sort of ideas of what that means. And so to start with, the ability that the instructor has to impart the sense of a real person behind the computer, and then the degree to which students are able to pick up on that real person, to sense that there is somebody and it's not just kind of a cold online course with nobody behind it, that just information that they are just kind of reading and taking in on their own, but that there really is a real person who is instructing the course. And then also looking at a sense of connection with others. So the extent to which students are able to feel a connection with their instructor. And also, of course, we want students to have a connection with each other as classmates. We're going to focus more today on that connection with the instructor and the students. And so we also want to look at in communication here. So one part of online learning, and a lot of, I hear this a lot from instructors who are new to online learning, especially those that were kind of thrust into it without knowing that that's what was coming. And they always say that when there's teaching in class, you can look around the room and you can kind of get that deer in headlights look if students are not getting what you're saying, or you get the nods and smiles if students are understanding, and it makes it easier to kind of adjust on the fly, give a different example, explain things in a different way, give more examples of something. Whereas online, we generally don't have that immediate feedback from students. So you can put everything out there that you have, all of your content and your discussions and your assignments, and you may not realize that students aren't getting it or need some assistance until you are actually grading those assignments. Having our communication, being able to use that communication tools so that we can still have kind of make up for that lack of immediate visual cues that we have in our face-to-face courses. All right, so when we, and I will sort of throughout kind of pause and take a look at Canvas throughout if I'm showing you certain examples, but a lot of this is kind of just explaining ways that you can use the tools that you already know how to use in Canvas to make this social presence idea work. So we'll look first at social presence through communicating that you are a real person. and making those connections with students and vice versa. And then also feedback. So being able to give students feedback on their work and having them be able to give you feedback as well on the course throughout and at the end of the course, so that things are always being tweaked and improved as we go. So one thing that is always recommended, and this kind of helps to establish that whole idea of introducing yourself as a real person out there that is on a journey with the students to teach and learn whatever the content of the course is the introductory email before a course starts. So I know a lot of instructors already do this, but I know a lot may not have thought of doing this, especially with the online environment, is to send out that email maybe a week before the course starts, or at least a few days before. It can be very comforting for students, and I remember this experience from back when I first took my first online class. When you're kind of not knowing what to expect and you have no idea what you're supposed to be doing on day one if you've never taken an online class before. And then you get an email from the instructor that kind of lays it all out there. And it can be very reassuring to have that, okay, now I kind of know what to expect idea before the class starts. So this, what's here is kind of just a general idea. This is certainly not like the end all be all of what you may include, but just kind of an idea of letting students know how the class will be structured, when it's going to start, maybe a link to the portal. It might not be a bad idea to send this particular type of email out to the students' CCC email, even if you generally use the Canvas inbox as the method of communication. Because this way, if the students have not yet gotten logged in to the portal or are having difficulties, they'll still receive this information and maybe can help them figure out where they need to go to get those login credentials that they should have gotten from OIT. And also just letting them know, you need to log in daily if that's your expectation, and kind of setting the parameters for what they will need to do throughout the week. And then also letting them know what they can expect from you. So how long is your response time? How often are you checking your emails? If they do reach out to you, how long will it be before you get back to them? An idea on if you're having your office hours online, when will they be? How long should they expect before it will take before they get information back on how they did on their assignments? And even if you have certain times of the day that you tend to be online, maybe let them know that as well, so they can kind of have an idea of when throughout the day you may be looking at discussions and activity in Canvas. And then, you can let them know that the technical, if there are technical requirements, the textbook, all that good stuff. A lot of this, of course, would again be covered in the syllabus, but just reaching out to them before the class starts really can help them feel more comfortable with the online process. Another great thing that a lot of you have already done, but there are still a lot of people that haven't done this yet. And it's something that doesn't take very long, but it's just putting a picture in your bio. And if you don't know how to do this, you can just go to the account menu in the upper left-hand corner when you're on your Canvas screen, and click on the profile link. And you'll see this little button here. April Anderson gave me permission to use hers as an example, but you would just click on it and you can just upload a picture of yourself. So it's really kind of something simple and kind of, not complicated, but it's a nice thing for students to be able to put a face with a name from the very beginning. And also, if you put a little bio, they get some idea of your background. So your credentials and where you went to school and what work experience maybe you have in the area that you're teaching in, and those types of things. I think it's just a nice way, just seeing that face is really lets students know who you are, a little bit about you, and cements that real person idea. And then humor, personality, those things, don't be afraid to let those things come through. This is Nathaniel Clark. He teaches film appreciation, I believe, and his videos that he's made for his course they're funny. Now, not everybody is comfortable with making funny videos where they're kind of doing more than just sitting there, and that's fine if that's not your personality or that's not what you're comfortable with. I'm not saying that you have to try to become an actor or pretend to be something that you're not, but I know many, those of you that I know have awesome senses of humor, a lot of you, and so kind of he had one of his first, I think this was his first video after we went online last spring, and it was the Mr. Rogers video, and so he sort of like dressed up as Mr. Rogers. That was the movie that they were watching. And then in his last video, I always have a pop quiz. And the pop quiz for that last video was, if you'd been paying attention, how many cats did he have that had popped up during his different videos. So I felt like it made me laugh. I'm sure it probably made the students laugh. And it really helped to give that sense to his students that even though everything had moved online, he was still there, that he was still the same person, and it sort of took away some of what can sometimes be a cold environment if we're just kind of putting raw data or plain facts there, can kind of help to make it more interesting and also just let the students feel like they are getting to know you a little bit as they are taking the class. And I always think about when I was back when I was a teacher, trying to teach students how to put their voice in their writing. And I think about that when I look at online courses, looking at how we can put have our voice and our personality show through in our online classes, even though sometimes it doesn't always seem like it lends itself to that. There's always ways that you can still be you and not be some kind of anonymous, nebulous being out there that's teaching the students. I will say, by the way, I will probably stop for questions throughout, but if at any time you do have a question, you can always feel free to just type it in if anything comes up. Another thing I've seen a lot for classes is the self-introduction, and I think that is awesome. But what I've also seen is a lot of times instructors will ask students to introduce themselves, but don't do it also. So I think it's a great idea to have your self-introduction in there as part of your discussion prompt. You can kind of set the tone or the type of information that you're hoping your students will share with you by sharing that same information with them. So this might be stuff that you also would just put in your bio, but if you weren't quite, I'm talking about my dogs and stuff here that I might not put in my bio on my in the people page or in my profile, but kind of just letting them know some fun stuff about me or favorite sports teams. You also could set a question in there. I think it's kind of interesting when instructors say, why did you take this course? Or why did you choose this major? And including information about yourself that says why you chose this profession. So modeling for them exactly what it is that you're looking for, which is a great idea in discussions anyway. But again, it helps them to feel like they're not just sharing about themselves, that you are sharing about yourself as well. And you also could do something funny like an icebreaker. Two truths and a lie is one that I've seen that people have done in person, but then also online, where people, will type two things about themselves that are true and one that is not, and everyone has to guess. And again, you could do the same thing. There's lots of those types of things that people do a lot of times in face-to-face. But when you're online, you can maybe tweak them a little bit to make them work in that environment as well. And then video is this is another great place that video could work. So posting an introductory video about yourself. So I could easily impart all of this information about myself in a video where they would get to see me as well as hear me and find out about me. And students can also upload videos about themselves as well. So if this was a discussion, students have the media tool that you have as well in your, when you click on the rich content editor. So if you are if you're creating a discussion for students, just so you know what this looks like, and this little button here is the record upload media button. And I know a lot of you have found it, but you may not have realized that students have it as well. So when your students are typing a response to a discussion, they could also click this button and use their webcam to record. I don't recommend using this for super long videos. It's really more meant for maybe like a 5 or 10 minute video, but that would be perfect for an introduction. And if you wanted to either require or give your students the opportunity, if they wanted to, they could record themselves, and then that not only helps with establishing a sense of social presence for the instructor, but also allows the students to begin building those connections with each other as well. I think I do see a question. Rose, was there a question in the chat or any questions that people have put so far?
Actually, the question was about students submitting videos, which you just covered.
Oh, okay, great. So yes, so students also have that opportunity to submit videos as well. So so I did see the question that just popped up of where students submit that everyone can see. So when they are responding to a discussion, they will see that same rich content editor that you have. So they will post their video. They'll post their video right here when they are in a discussion. So this is their new discussion post that they are creating. They can type in here, or they can click this button and activate their own webcam. And then instead of, or in addition to anything that they have written in this box, all the other students will also see that video embedded in the page for them as well. So that will allow them to participate in that sharing their videos just like you can. All right, let me get back here. So that's just a couple of discussion ideas to start with. And there's a lot of others that we'll look at that you can also use the discussion tool for, because it is such a great tool for helping to create that online community that we are looking to create with our students. So another thing, and I really think one good thing about this, if there is, we're try to look for silver linings with everything having to go online, but it's caused the conferences tool to get used a lot more than it ever was in the past. And so I think that now instructors who teach online or always had taught online are now thinking more about using the conferences tool in Canvas for office hours. And so just thinking about maybe different times, I just slapped this up here as an example. This isn't something from a real class, but if you can offer maybe an hour, a couple of hours a week where you will be in conferences, and there is a webinar on conferences tomorrow if you need some more insight on how to use that tool. But if you just make yourself available and you are in your conferences tab in your course within a conference and invite your students to join, they know that if they need to, they can come in. There may be times that you'll sit there and you don't have anybody that joins you for office hours. I did have one or two instructors that created their own course, created a course on their dashboard, and just used it for conferences. And so created a conference and added everybody in all their courses to it. So I initially heard that that was working well, and it made it a little bit easier, like having office hours on campus. Anyone from any of your courses or your classes could stop by. And so that could be an option. So just thinking about different ways that you can make yourself available to your students if and when they need some extra help. Another way that video could be used, and this also could have to do with either if you're getting a lot of email questions from students, or if you're getting questions in your discussions, using video to respond. So again, this is just another way that you can kind of, instead of typing out a response, having that video response in there. And another thing that is a good thing to try that I've heard from other instructors, of trying to respond to a post from each student at least once during the semester. So each student gets at least one personalized response to a post that they've made on the discussion boards throughout the semester. Obviously, it would be very difficult for you to respond to every post, and I would not recommend trying to do that unless you have maybe a very small class. So you're going to let your students know from the beginning that you're going to read all the posts, but you're not going to be able to respond to every post. So making that a goal to try to at least personally respond to every student once is a good goal to have. And that way they feel like they're being recognized, that you know that they are there, even though you are not always able to respond to everything that they have done. One thing that I was kind of looking for an example of, and I didn't find one completely, but a lot of you have really embraced the idea of putting videos with mini lectures online, and that's great. Maybe using whatever tool you're using to record. I don't recommend having an hour long lecture uploaded, but mini lectures are a great tool, especially for things that you really feel like you need to be able to explain. Sharing your screen or being able to demonstrate something for students. Video is a great way to help provide that visual element that is not necessarily maybe you would be missing if you didn't do the video part of it. And I think it would be a great idea to see the video actually put into the discussion. So just like I showed you with the rich content editor, instead of just uploading your video as a file or just linking it to a page, link it directly to the discussion and have that be the discussion for the week. So students have to respond with a question that they have from the video, or they have to respond with a comment or their own media recording. But that can kind of help to simulate in some ways a way that students can immediately, if they have questions after they've watched your lecture or watched your demonstration, they don't have to email it to you. They can just type it right there in the discussion, and that can get hopefully a further discussion going on about whatever the topic was that you had lectured on for that week. So that's one thing that I think, as we move into getting a little bit more comfortable with using the tools, that you'll see that there's a lot of other tools that can be used in conjunction with discussions that will hopefully further those conversations with students and make them a little bit more robust. So now we're going to talk a little bit about feedback. And we're going to start with providing students with feedback. With online courses, providing feedback promptly is really important, because again, you're not seeing your students face to face. So if you are working with students and you're clearly able to see that they're struggling with this particular concept, there's chances that you will pick up on that a lot faster in a face-to-face course because you are seeing that visual feedback. Since that is not really the same, doesn't work the same way online, it's a good idea to make sure that you are looking at student assignments and submissions quickly and then providing them with prompt and detailed feedback. So hopefully before they start to work on the next assignment, if they did really poorly on that first assignment, letting them know what they did, how they could improve before they turn in their next assignment so that they're not repeating those same mistakes. So I know most of you have used SpeedGrader in the past, but this is one great thing about SpeedGrader. And so you can put your assignment comments in there, give the students suggestions on how they can improve for the next time. And just in case some of you haven't ever clicked on these buttons down here, so this is the SpeedGrader comment box where you could just, of course, type in, but you also could upload a media comment by clicking on this button here. So you could either just record your voice with their comment instead of typing it, or you could record a video of yourself giving them feedback. And if you get tired of typing, button actually is a speech to text generator. So if you want to just talk and have it type in for you, you can do that as well. So always looking for ways to maybe kind of speed up the process. But again, because we don't want students to not realize that they aren't doing well in the class until toward the end of the class when they've been turning in assignments and they keep making the same mistakes, we do really want to try to make sure that we're getting that feedback to them quickly so that they can learn from whatever it is that they may be doing incorrectly. And then another good idea, I think, is as you are looking through student work, as you're looking through the discussions for the week, whatever type of assessments that you have, it's a good idea to kind of keep notes if you can, jot down ideas about common issues that you're seeing. So if there's misconceptions that students have that, you're realizing there's more than one student that thinks this, or problem areas that students are struggling with, to jot those down. And you can really make a video that would address all of those kind of at the same time. So not calling out individual students, but you could create that talking head video or use a screencast software to record to just address and say, hey, this week I saw that a lot of you misunderstood this concept. You can make a video and either put it as an announcement, which some people will do, or even just kind of put it in as a page, upload the video to the page and put it at the top of the module for the next week so that students can click on it and kind of just get a recap of what was learned from the last module, and anything that you feel like that you need to correct or address. This is also a great place to put kudos or say, bring up interesting points that you saw students make in the course of the discussion or in an assignment. And this is another great place to mention students by name so that they, again, know that they are there, that you are recognizing the contributions that they're making to class. And again, trying to do that with everyone at some point throughout the course of the class is always another way to make them feel involved and part of that community. And if you're not sure about how to put a video into a page, there is a video on that in the Canvas Faculty Hub, as well as on how to ways that you can record videos as well. So now I want to kind of look for a minute at student feedback. So how to have students feel comfortable with letting you know what worked in a class, and also just different ways that you can kind of assess how things are going informally as well. A lot of you have a what we call open Q&A, a virtual cafe, that type of discussion in your course. And this is one that I got. This is Nicole Jacob Burgers. I just liked the way that she had worded this. But just, and she actually had a lot of, as you can see, she had 25 different posts. Sometimes students really use these areas, sometimes they don't, but this class, they used it a lot. And I like her kind of guidelines. So it's, you might have all have the same question, post them here. And then she kind of gives guidelines about what the content should be. And this is an area for public questions, not grievances. I like that too. So it's not just coming in here to just complain. And that's another great way that you can kind of assess in your class what's working and maybe what you might need to tweak. Because if you have a lot of questions about the same assignment, or you have, the same types of questions popping up over and over, that can be kind of, a clue that maybe you need to clarify something, so that might be something that you'll need to tweak the next time around. So sort of keeping an eye on that and seeing what types of questions you're getting in that open course Q&A can be helpful. And also it will allow you to communicate with students if they have questions, and other students can see that you're there, that you did respond, and maybe you don't have to respond as many times, because again, if students all have the same question and you respond to one, they can read it there and know that what you're saying is the correct answer. Another good idea, if you have some individual students who struggled with a particular assignment, even just asking them individually, what happened here? What was the issue? And sometimes students just, they had their own reasons, and it didn't have much to do with the way that you set up the assignment. But if we're always looking at improving and tweaking for the future, that can be helpful too, to pinpoint students, individuals that didn't do well with it, and find out maybe what they could have had that would have helped them to do better on a particular assignment. So these are more of a kind of an informal, maybe a formative type of feedback. And then more structured feedback. So we don't have any kind of official survey that we use for online courses, but I think getting some early feedback, either from a survey or from looking at student work and questions, is a good idea. Not waiting maybe till the end of the course, but finding out what's working and what's not. And then you can use the quizzes tool in Canvas to create a survey. So it's basically done the same way as you would to create quiz questions. You would type the question in for the survey, and you can either give them multiple choice, or you can leave it open and they can provide suggestions for you. You can make it anonymous, or you can make it, associated with students. So if you want students to feel free to be able to give their opinions without, being afraid of associating their name with it, you can let them know that it is an anonymous survey. And there's other ways too. I kind of liked this one, this start, stop, continue idea. And this would work well as a discussion, or if you wanted it to be more just between you and the students, you could always just do it as an assignment and have the students just turn it into you. And having the students give you 1 to 3 things that they wish that you would start doing if they were going to take your course over again. So what are 1 to 3 things that it would be helpful to start doing in the course that would help their learning? And then the second would be to stop. What maybe 1 to 3 elements of the course did the students find unnecessary or unhelpful in the learning process? What things maybe felt like they weren't really helping to further along the learning process? And then finally, continue. What 1 to 3 elements of the course worked really well and should be kept? And again, all of this sort of you take with a grain of salt. You look at, what are helpful suggestions and what is just kind of complaining, because of course you may get things that students just didn't feel like doing the work and that's why they're complaining about it. But it can help to kind of give you maybe some insight in things that, especially I think with the start doing, can be a very helpful if there's something throughout the course that students think, oh man, I really wish that my instructor would do this. That kind of insight can be really helpful. And again, students having some ownership in being able to give you that feedback really helps with that sense of taking ownership of their own learning, realizing that you do value their thoughts, and especially since this is new for a lot of people, new for a lot of students, and for a lot of instructors. And I do think it's okay to let your students know that as well if you're new to the online environment, or maybe you're teaching a course completely online for the first time. I think that it's definitely okay to let them know that and say, hey, this is a learning process for me. And again, that just sort of helps to reinforce the humanity of the whole situation that we're all kind of dealing with at this moment in time. So just to kind of conclude, to let your personality show. We are all part of this learning community, all part of the college, and all have different things to offer. And I think it's great when people find ways to let those elements of their personalities be reflected in their online courses. Communication early, before the class starts, often throughout, and in multiple ways. So in videos, in your inbox emails, announcements, just as many ways as you can to communicate feedback and to communicate instruction, and also just kind of taking the temperature of the class as it goes. And then also giving students the opportunity to do the same and provide you with feedback to help you continue to revise and tweak and help make your class the best that it can be. So that is what I have for you today. And if anybody has suggestions or has ideas or questions about anything, now would be a great time to go ahead and type that into the chat. I'd be happy to do my best to answer any questions. And if you don't have questions, I just want to say thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. And I hope everybody is staying safe and healthy. And thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate, and I want everybody to be safe as well. And just
So Jenny,
looking to see if there's questions.
We have a question. It says, can we upgrade Canvas to keep the videos to let students see each other?
I'm guessing that is a question about conferences, and I haven't heard that they are planning on paying for an upgraded version, unfortunately. I know that that's something that conferences changed just recently, or a big blue button, I should say, changed just recently in response to the, I guess, flood of people using it, trying to conserve bandwidth. Unfortunately, that the students are not allowed to, or not able to see each other now in conferences. And I have not heard that they are, I mean, that is something that we can definitely bring up in a meeting, but I haven't heard that that's something that we're going to be able to do. Have you, I don't think you've heard anything about that either.
No, I haven't. There's another question that says, are there any mechanisms that you prescribe for having students join internal groups?
All right, if you're talking about like groups for assignments, or you can actually just create groups within Canvas, if that's what that means. You can, if you are in your course and you click on people, you can create groups within the people tab. You can come up here and click add group set and give the group set a name. So if it was for a particular assignment or a particular project, you might want to give it the name of that assignment. Or if it was just a group that you wanted students to just do work in throughout the semester, you could just say work groups or something like that. And then you can set the groups up. You can allow them to sign up themselves if you'd like, or if not, you can split the students yourself and put the groups manually or have it done automatically. And then that way you would just click create group. We'll just call it group 1, and then just drag and drop the students into the group. And then these students will, once they are placed into a group, they're going to see an icon on the left that says groups, and they'll be able to click on that and enter the group. And they'll have their own discussion area. They'll have their own area where they can upload files. There's a place that they can work, for collaboration and stuff like that. So that might be, hopefully that is an answer for your question.
Jenny, we have a question about feedback. When giving feedback in the assignment section, how do students see that feedback? Do they have to go in the assignment, or do they get an alert?
So they will get an alert. They will, on their dashboard over in the recent feedback section, they will see any recent items that have been graded. They also will see that within the course as well. So every course has a section over here that will let them know when they have work that's been turned in or that's been graded, sorry. And if they have alerts set up, they may also get notifications sent to their email, depending if they have that set up. So they should be able to see that in a variety of ways that they have recent feedback.
All right, I don't see any other new questions, although there was a question earlier asking if you were going to send out a copy of your presentation.
Oh, yes, I can definitely do that. So I am seeing Dimitri saying about the feedback. I have heard from other instructors too, like if you make a comment on this or give feedback and the student comments on that, that it can be kind of cumbersome to have to go back in to see those comments. One other way that you can see those comments, and I don't think that I have fake students, but if you actually go to your inbox and you select the course that you want to look at, you can actually go and change in your inbox. You can pull up submission comments. And I don't have any, but for any of my courses, but you actually can see the submission comments in your inbox in a list, which I think would be probably a lot easier than having to click through and view them individually in the assignment. I will send out, I'll actually just put our distance learning email if you have any additional questions. If you have any additional questions, feel free to email us there, and we'll be happy to answer those for you.